Hi everyone, welcome to our weekly Q&A session, and today it is my pleasure to welcome here our coach Richard. So Richard, it's really nice to see you. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Veronika. How are you doing today?
I'm feeling really wonderful because outside is finally spring weather. The birds are chirping, there is a lot of sunshine, and I've been missing this a lot in the past months. So we just only gray, gloomy, rain and mud. So this wasn't really nice. But when the sun comes up, I feel so much energy, and it's really wonderful. So I'm really looking forward to sunny days.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I live in Denver, Colorado, and unfortunately, March tends to be one of our snowiest months, even though spring is
Really?
starting to come. Yes. So
Wow.
we'll probably get some snow this month, and maybe in April too. So we'll see.
Wow. Do you have snow also now or not at all?
Right now, there's none on the ground right now in Denver. But,
And how many degrees is it outside?
I think it's about 40 degrees Fahrenheit right now.
Okay, Fahrenheit. So for Celsius is like
That's about what is
well,
I don't even know.
6 degrees.
Sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah, Celsius. Okay. Cool. So thank you so very much for sharing, Coach Richard. And yeah, I have a question that was written for us on the YouTube, and it's from Annie. So, hi Annie. Thank you very much for the great videos. I have a question. I use the time asleep window. It has become a pattern that I wake up at the same time every night, many hours before my alarm goes off. I'll watch Netflix then. I know exactly how long a series lasts, so my brain automatically calculates how many hours I'm awake, and that's something that scares me again because I use it to check how many hours I have slept. So, what can I do? So, what are your thoughts, Richard?
Yeah, well, thank you for that question. You know, um, just for some of our viewers who don't know what the timeless sleep window is, it's
Mhm.
just having, a time like when I was recovering, I would have my timeless window from 10 p.m. to about 6 a.m. And that was just the time that I didn't look at the clock. And it wasn't necessarily the time that I went to bed, but it was kind of the time that was kind of the nighttime as
Mhm.
opposed to daytime. And, I had that same experience where I would wake up about the same time, usually about 3 a.m. I would go to sleep fine, but then wake up around 3 a.m. And I had kind of the same experience. Now, I forget the questioner's name.
Annie, it was
Annie.
Annie.
So, yeah, Annie. Yeah. So I would get up and watch Seinfeld. So it's kind of similar. You're getting up and watching TV. And initially, I would say, okay, Seinfeld is 23 minutes. I better be sleepy after 23 minutes, and then I'll be able to go back to bed. Well, of course, I was using the Seinfeld is kind of like a high-tech sleeping pill or sleeping device that better put me to sleep. And that didn't work. That just made me more aware of the clock. And then I discovered that, okay, if I just accepted, hey, it's 3 o'clock, I'd really much rather be sleeping. But if I don't, I don't. And when I accepted that in a kind of a light way and, not making too big a deal out of it, I found that I could really start enjoying the show. And it might be a couple of episodes. And then I would just find myself getting sleepy. So when I wasn't chasing sleep, it happened. It's kind of like a cat. If you're chasing a cat, it goes away. If you just sit there, it'll come to you. Um, and then Annie, you also mentioned, calculating. You know how long an episode is. So even if you're not looking at the clock, you say, well, it's 3 episodes. That's an hour. I have, and you do the mental math. I have 2 more hours to sleep or whatever. Now, this whole monitoring and thinking and doing this mental math is just arousing, and that just causes more hyperarousal and keeps us awake. So, whatever you can do to try to take your mind off of the time and calculation and pondering and wondering, that's going to help you feel more peaceful and move you toward better sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing, Richard. And I
Yeah.
totally agree that the more we are trying to chase sleep, the more we are uh, analyzing how long an episode lasts, and how and whether we will be sleepy after that episode. This is going to bring us more hyperarousal, and the sleep becomes more elusive. What I would add to this is that in the end, we want to become the sleepers we were before. That means that even we could look at the time and we felt quite indifferent about it. So it's not really about knowing or not knowing the time. It's about our emotional response.
Exactly.
Yeah. So when you just would look at the time, or when you just and you would see that, oh, I'm a little bit anxious, or I'm a little bit nervous, then this is like an invitation, an opportunity to process this emotion, to give it a full presence, attention, to stay with it for a while, and just not trying to push it away. Of course, we might feel frustration. Of course, we might feel not uncomfortable. Of course, we would be rather sleeping. But as you said, Coach Richard, it's about acceptance. You know, uh, just accepting that I'm not sleeping right now, and I'm safe whether I sleep or not. So this is what I would add to this part.
Yeah, right.
Cool. So I'm sorry, I have some notification here. I'm not sure what does this mean, but okay. Hopefully everything will work as it's supposed to work. Another question is, I'm so envious of other people and their sleep. I constantly think about it, and I think that how good they have slept, how great they feel, and I'm only miserable. What do I do?
Yeah.
Sounds familiar, Richard?
Yeah. Oh, it sounds very familiar. Yeah, we often get this from people, and that's certainly something I experienced in the thick of my insomnia. Why do these other people sleep so easily? Why they just go to bed and they don't think about it? And you know, and I did all this research into sleep and how to sleep better, and I had all these sleep hacks that I was trying to do, and it's actually very understandable and very normal that we're envious of other people because they have something we don't. And it's naturally we all want to sleep. But what I found is that I could actually take inspiration from them. Instead of being envious, I was inspired by good sleepers. Oh, and I realized that I could do more of what they were doing, which was nothing. You ask a good sleeper, why do you sleep? I don't know. I just do. So, so it's putting all this mental energy into sleep that gets in the way of sleep. Good sleepers don't put this mental energy into it. They don't have these complicated routines that they have to go through, these complicated sleep hygiene things like blackout curtains and lavender pillows and melatonin and so forth. They just go to bed and go to sleep. So I think that in my journey, being inspired by these people, instead of being envious of them, really helped me move forward.
I very much agree, and I also have this experience. But one anecdotal um, example is that I remember one of our clients. She said she was always and constantly thinking about sleep. That even when she went to a coffee shop, she would ask the waiter there, "How did you sleep?" So yeah, so it's very common like to have sleep in their mind and like to assess, okay, this person looks like she's slept a lot, this person looks like so relaxed. It's very normal. It just our brain is trying to point us towards the solution of this problem by sending us constant thoughts about sleep. And we need to normalize it. It's absolutely fine. And it's normal. There is nothing wrong with this. But we need to see, like, where is the boundary of, like, yeah, this is just a thought. And when we are overthinking it, right?
Yeah.
And this is when we just, okay, so just Take it easy. This is too much, maybe. So, right. Thank you so much for sharing. And we have new questions. One question is from Ayman. Hi, Ayman. Hey, I have a question. I'm really confused. I have a speed bump, like I have related my insomnia to the month. So it comes out from last 2 to 3 years, but in first 2 years I didn't get that knowledge. But from last year I took that knowledge from Fearless Sleep Alina and the Sleep Coach School channel. But I think I spent my whole day watching videos of sleep coach last year, that month, and that turned to the point where there was a sandstorm I understand over Instagram, and I was confused how to apply. But then after that month, my university starts and my focus shifts to different things. So it faded for like 1 year or less, but now it's again become my obsession when this month comes and again. And I'm taking knowledge, but it's again become obsession Instagram knowledge. What I have gotten from this question is that Ayman had struggled with insomnia, and let's say in March last year, and he started to learn a lot. He got over it, but now March started and he has insomnia again. So it is like he has made a mental connection that my insomnia starts in March. So yes, a follow-up question. I'm confused that I should continue watching videos. And he's now probably fearful that by educating himself, he will get more confused about insomnia, about sleep. So, how to get over this? Does it make sense to you, Richard?
Well, yeah, yeah, I think the way I put this together is that Eamon has had some struggles with sleep, and then things went better, and probably I gather that he was thinking that he was over it and that things were okay,
Mhm.
and now he's having what he refers to as a speed bump. And for our audience who isn't aware, speed bump is just a period where your sleep was better and then it's not quite so good. It's more challenging. And this happens all the time in insomnia. It's not just, the steady, constant thing. There are ups and downs. And that's just how our brain works, that it's variable. It's kind of like, the weather or the stock market. Things don't, just kind of improve on a steady rate. There are bumps and there are ups and downs. So just accept the fact that there are going to be speed bumps, there are going to be ups and downs. And when you have a speed bump, it doesn't mean that you're going back to where you were before. Especially if you're in a program like this where you're um, learning about sleep and learning about how to deal with your feelings around it, because you can't unlearn what you've already learned. So, and again, I'm not sure if he was saying that March is kind of here again, and he's afraid he's going to have insomnia.
He is. He has a follow-up question. No, I'm not again in insomnia. I'm just preventing by taking knowledge. Knowledge is becoming my obsession. I
Okay.
am problem solving again every logic.
Yeah, okay. So there's a problem with problem solving. If we're too focused on, I've got to solve the problem of sleep, that just activates our brain, and um, it's hard to sleep when you're trying to solve the problem of sleep. And the best way to solve the problem of sleep is to stop problem solving. Now, that's paradoxical, and there's so much that's paradoxical in the whole world of insomnia. But if our mind is overactive and always looking for, well, what's the solution to this problem? That's just going to keep us activated and hyper aroused, and it's going to interfere with sleep. And he speaks of their his having this kind of obsession about knowledge. Well, it's okay to gain some, appropriate knowledge about sleep and about insomnia, But to be kind of overly engaged with this and overly obsessed with this is really just going to get in the way. So yeah, some knowledge is a good thing. I kind of distinguish productive thinking about sleep, which hopefully, we're kind of doing here now, and less productive. So, I remember in the middle of the night, I'd be awake at 3 a.m. and my mind was going round and round and ruminating and worrying, and that was unproductive thinking.
Mm,
And whereas, if I would sit down, I did have, a sleep coach in my recovery and talk with her, that was much more productive thinking.
mhm.
So we can still think, but try to make it productive. And the last point I want to make is that I realized at one point that I was spending up to 5 hours a day at times thinking about sleep and researching it and Googling it and all kinds of things. When I cut
Amazing.
that down to an hour a day and then to like 15 minutes a day, that really kind of led me forward in on my recovery journey. That really helped. So when we think about things too much, that really just amplifies the thoughts or the feelings that we're thinking about. So don't overdo the thinking. Don't overdo it, all right?
Wonderful, Richard. I have nothing much to add. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm sorry, just jump in. We have a question from TTT94. Hello, thanks to Sleep Course School, I'm almost out of my insomnia, but I have one last struggle. My brain time to comes up with scary scenarios about my health. What if I develop migraines and will never be able to sleep? And it gives me instant anxiety. When I think deeply about it, I'm not afraid of health issues. I'm afraid of it causing my insomnia to come back.
Yeah.
So, what do you think, Richard?
Yeah. So, we all naturally want to sleep well. And when we've had insomnia, but we are recovering or have recovered and get better,
Mhm,
I think it's kind of normal and natural to wonder, well, this happened before. Could it happen again?
mhm,
And, it's just kind of the same phenomenon as we experienced initially. It's that fear center in the brain looking out for us. We have insomnia because our brain loves us. It wants to protect us, and it thinks that being awake is a threat, like a charging grizzly bear.
mhm,
It's not a real threat. It's a perceived threat. And when we have this overactive fear center, it just keeps looking out for our well-being. It means well. It's a quirk in our brain that uh, makes it overactive and overprotective. So understanding that this happens and that it's normal to happen, for me, went a long way in reassuring me that it wasn't, this terrible thing coming back. I also wanted to just comment on health anxiety because a lot of our clients have kind of wider health anxiety, not just anxious about sleep, but anxious, am I going to get a heart attack? Am I going to have migraine headaches? Am I going to die young? All these things. And again, it's the fear center trying to protect us. And I think with reassurance and with not engaging overly in these thoughts, they're going to eventually fade away.
mhm. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing, Richard. And I would only add that, you know, uh, if you are afraid of it, it's more likely that it will come. But when you accept the reality, okay, it might happen, it might not happen, right? You have not much of a control over it there.
Mhm.
But you overcome it once, you can do it again.
Right,
So
right. Yeah.
this is my 2 cents. And questions coming in, and we have already a thank you note from Annie,
Mhm.
and you're welcome. And a question from Kyla. I know the program is about befriending wakefulness and being okay with it, but how do you get to the point of being okay with it when you've been up for 2 days and you feel horrible?
Yeah.
So, what do you think?
Yeah. So for those in our audience who don't know, befriending wakefulness is kind of one of the pillars of our approach here. Instead of bemoaning the fact that we're awake, we we try to move toward befriending it. And, of course, if you're awake at 3 o'clock in the morning, you'd much rather be asleep. And so when I initially heard this concept, I thought it was crazy, really. I thought that's like hugging a charging grizzly bear, to befriend something that you don't want. But it really makes sense not to bemoan it and push it away, because when we befriend wakefulness, we kind of lower that fear. And the first step in befriending wakefulness isn't to embrace it fully. It's just to try to move toward making it a little less intolerable. So yeah, I'm awake and I hate it, and but it's not the end of the world. It's not a physical threat. And so our brain starts to understand this. Now, if you've been awake for 2 days, as Kayla says, and you feel horrible, kind of accept the fact that you feel horrible, and um, don't try to pretend that you feel wonderful and that being awake is this wonderful thing and it doesn't bother you. One of the things I would do sometimes is, and this might sound like it's the complete contradiction of befriending wakefulness, is I would say, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, I would say, I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. And this would seem like the opposite of befriending it and accepting it, but actually I was accepting my frustration about it. And by saying that I hate it, and I would say it aloud if nobody else was around, by saying that I hate it, that actually kind of took a significant amount of the pressure off. And we don't want to pretend that we think it's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
But if we take these little steps in finding it a little less intolerable, we can go further in the direction of befriending wakefulness.
Yeah, you put it really wonderfully, Richard, and I totally can relate to, like, really to vent the frustration. We all need to find our ways how to vent it, how to process our emotions, how to process our frustrations, our sadness, our anger. And yeah, for me, it would go, I would clench my fists, because when I was so angry and I didn't know what to do, I would like really just release the energy by just, for a few seconds, I would just clench my fists and I would feel a little bit lighter. So really accepting, allowing, everybody can find their own way how to process them. There are really many options out on the internet. And just the only thing that I want to say that I think it's important that with all these kind of like actions, it's not about denying the emotions. It's not about avoiding or stopping them. It's really about processing and allowing them. So that's what I wanted to mention. And there's one teaching that was really helpful for me in terms of being afraid of consecutive nights of not sleeping. For me, it was very common during my insomnia years that I would take like 4 or 5 nights that I pulled an all-nighter. And so actually there are two teachings. The first one is attributed to the obvious, and that is when you have an all-nighter on a really bumpy night, it's helpful to attribute it to something that for some external reason, or because maybe you were stressed, you were sick, you had an argue with your beloved one, with the hormones, just whatever, right? That's an external reason. There's actually one internal reason, which is our fear, how the fear operates in our brain. And actually this one is a little bit more scary, because sometimes these all-nighters comes like out of the blue. Like we are sleeping fine, and then one all-nighter happens, and we get scared of it. Oh my God, what's wrong? What did I do wrong? What should I do now? And so on and so on. But we need to understand that sometimes our brain sends us this, I call it a question. Hey, you used to be afraid of this in the past. Are you sure you are not afraid of this anymore? And it's sending us the old fears, and they just basically resurfaced. So our task, or what we need to kind of do, is just to allow it, befriend it, and learn to accept it. And so this was attributing to the obvious. And just to add, when we attribute it to something, we don't go down the rabbit hole of thinking this is wrong, this is not supposed to happen, what is wrong with me, and so on. So we don't get stuck. And the other teaching that was really helpful was the thresholds. And we very often create some kind of thresholds in our mind, like, and they can be very arbitrary. One threshold could be, I can accept 1 night of not sleeping, but I can't accept 2 nights of not sleeping. Some have like 3 nights, 4 nights, whatever. But there could be like, I can take the supplement, but I can't take the benzos. Or I can take 1 pill in the evening, I can't take 2. Or my insomnia recovery can take like, I don't know, 6 weeks, but it can't take 3 months, right? And this kind of creating these boundaries, these thresholds, is leading us to control. We are trying to control our sleep. We are trying to control our recovery. Also, it's leading us to more effort. The closer we are to the threshold, the more effort we give into our sleep, and it leads to pressure because we are pressuring more the closer we are to this threshold. So and what to do with it is just the awareness. Anytime you just see, oh, I'm okay with 1 night or 2 nights, but not with the rest. Oh, this is my bound, this is my threshold. Just bring the awareness into it. Don't try to push it away, because it's just the way your brain is trying to protect you, right? It's trying to figure out and make sense from all of this, because in these thresholds, within these thresholds, your brain feels safe. But if you think about it, maybe in the past you have crossed these thresholds and you survived it. It might not feel pleasant, it might not feel okay, but you made it through. So I hope we have answered your question, Kyla. And right, let's ask a question from Lanita. So hi, Lanita. The question is sudden fragmented sleep a speed bump? So what do you think, Richard?
Yeah, thanks for that, Lenita. Sudden fragmented sleep. So by fragmented sleep, we just mean that it's choppy, that, we fall asleep and we wake up, and it's not just kind of this smooth thing. The first thing to know is that everybody has many, many awakenings every night. Just that most people, if they sleep well, just go back to sleep and they don't recognize it. So it is normal to have frequent awakenings. What happens when we have insomnia often is that we have this little awakening, which is normal, but then we notice it. Uh-oh, something's wrong. Uh-oh, there must be a problem. And then that wakes us up either for a longer period or just being more awake, and we have more trouble going to sleep. I would say that, yeah, if your sleep has been more consistent and then it's fragmented or choppy for a period of time, I would say, this is a little speed bump. And as we said before, speed bumps are totally normal. Periods when we have slept well, but then we're not sleeping as well, always happen in insomnia recovery. So yeah, I would say that's a little speed bump.
Well, what I would add is, as you were speaking, I was thinking maybe what could be helpful for Lanita is the distinction between sleep disruption and insomnia. Because we might have a sleep disruption that can manifest in sudden fragmented sleep, right? And it could be for any reason. It could be biological or physiological reason. It could be because of stress, like I mentioned. It could be literally anything, but we don't make anything bigger out of it, right? Because some people are, like, for example, new moms, they do have fragmented sleep because their baby is waking them up, but they have a really good reason to be awake, so they are not worried about it. But when we have insomnia, we have this self-perpetuating ongoing struggle with sleep, and it's really and there is this layer of fear. So I would say that if there isn't any fear, if there isn't any worry and overthinking, overanalyzing, it's just a normal sleep disruption like everybody in the world has. So I would go this way, if that makes sense, Lanita. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to add that, speed bumps, as I said, are normal and they're always temporary. Okay.
Mhm.
If you,
Yes.
assuming you're learning about sleep and it's getting better, you can't unlearn what you've learned, as I mentioned earlier. And speed bumps are also an opportunity to reinforce the learning that you have and to kind of strengthen your understanding and the consistency of your sleep. So they have a silver lining, definitely.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Right. And let's answer one last question. And we have a question from Paley. Hi. I'm on a recovery journey since last 5 months, and I think I'm in a rabbit hole. I couldn't even sleep so much of I can even sleep so much of palpitations. I have been training my mind by these videos still. What can I do? I have daily palpitations, anxiety, even I'm befriending of wakefulness, but still unable to sleep. If I awaken in between, that's more difficult for me to fall back asleep.
Okay.
Got
So,
it?
yeah. So, yeah, I mean, palpitations, of course, racing heart or stronger heartbeat, pounding heart. I mean, this is just assuming there's no heart problem, which I'm assuming here. Um, this is a very normal reaction, manifestation of anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
What happens often is that we have these manifestations of anxiety and we become afraid of having these symptoms in themselves. So we become really afraid of fear. We become anxious about our anxiety or the physical manifestations of it. So we need to have the same attitude toward these physical manifestations as we do toward kind of the more psychological manifestations of anxiety. Yeah, I'm anxious and I'm not going to make that big a deal out of it. I'm not going to push it away, but I'm not going to overly engage with it. And the same with something like palpitations. We don't want to make too much of a big deal out of it, assuming there's no physical health problem. And if we don't make too much of a big deal out of it, it will just fade with time. What else was she saying? She's trying to change her. I think I'm.
Well, sorry, one more. I'm unable to figure out the fear of fear.
Yeah, the fear of fear. I mean, that's just kind of. I think that's what Claire Weeks talks about the second fear,
Mm,
becoming afraid of the fear itself. Claire Weeks was a psychiatrist in the mid 1900s who talked a lot about anxiety. And she talks about this second fear. So the first fear is, we have just fear of different things. The second fear is being fearful of the fear itself. And
mm,
for me, just being aware of this phenomenon, fear, helped me kind of be less concerned about it.
mhm,
But again, our fear center is always out there. It wants to keep us safe. And when we become fearful of fear, this whole process just escalates. So it's a normal process to be fearful of fear, and becoming aware of it can help us kind of make less of that than we are.
mm. Do want to know how to resolve this paradoxical situation? So I can take over here, and when we have this fear of fear, it is we have this automatic fear, which is we have no control over. It just happens in our body, and we can't do anything about it. But then we start to fear about the fear that has already happened. So now we have this second fear, like you mentioned, Richard. And when we have this second fear, uh, it becomes a cycle. The more afraid we are, the more afraid we are, right? So we need to kind of learn to allow this first and automatic fear to happen, and We do it. I mention it quite often that uh, connect with the fear, the way you the way you uh, just how does it manifest in your body. You can place your hand on your heart when you have the palpitations. Just focus on it. Give it 100% attention for a few moments at the beginning, for a few minutes. And when you just allow it, when you process it, because for me it was hard at the beginning. I wasn't even able to place my hand on my heart. It was so uncomfortable. I was so afraid to feel these palpitations. So it's very normal to feel really, really uncomfortable around all of this, because this whole emotion feels very overwhelming. But when you cut it down to pieces, okay, my fear, what does it consist of? It consists of these thoughts, this set of thoughts, these symptoms like palpitations, churning stomach, sweating palms, my maybe restless legs, whatever. And when you bring your full attention to each of these symptoms, then you kind of allow it. You start to process it. You bring it to the surface. And with this allowing, you are teaching your brain that these emotions are safe, that they are okay to experience them. You don't have fear of your palpitations, no fear of your turning stomach, no fear of your racing thoughts. But you need to bring the full attention to it. And then, of course, because it's very uncomfortable, you can distract yourself. You can watch Seinfeld. You can watch The Big Bang Theory. You can do anything you want to. But before that, just process your emotions. Bring your full attention to what is going on in your body. And this is the way how to overcome the fear of fear. Then you're teaching your brain, like, hey, there is nothing to be afraid of. I like how one of our uh, fellow coaches, she shared that basically having palpitations or racing heart is when she had that, she would visualize that she's running a marathon. And our brain cannot really distinguish between what is reality and what is just an illusion, what is what you just made up. So next time you have this palpitation, just imagine yourself running a marathon, like really sweaty and feeling like you are at the finish line and your heart is really bouncing and you are really at you're really like winning the marathon. Just create something positive about this situation. So this could really, really help in processing this emotion, these thoughts. Right. And we have a few follow-up questions, but we don't have now time to respond them all. But I accept all the time of emotions, but don't know which one should I act upon. When you approach all of them with acceptance, like for example, Coach Richard mentions when he was angry, he would vent it with, I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. When you are afraid of the palpitations, you just you can imagine that you are running a marathon, or just place your hand on your heart and say, hello, anxiety, you are allowed to stay as long as you need. With these little statements, you are not pushing it away. You are allowing it. You are accepting it. And emotions, they have their beginning, their peak, and their end. They don't want to stay with you forever. So I hope this was helpful for you, Pale. I don't know why this is showing up constantly here. I don't know how to get rid of it. There is some, I don't know. Okay. Right. Thank you so much for being here, Richard. I hope everybody enjoyed this Q&A session. I'll be back here next week and with Coach Richard some other time. Thank you, everybody, for all these questions, and have a good time. Bye-bye. Take
Thanks,
care.
everyone. Thanks,
Bye.
Veronika. Bye now.
Bye.